people, and welcome to the Big Picture. Today we're looking at the arson and violent incidents that are continuing on the streets of Kohima and Dimapur in Nagaland, despite the presence of paramilitary troops across all sensitive pockets and Section 144 imposed in both the districts. The Home Ministry has also asked the Central Reserve Police Force, or the CRPF, to send in more troops to control law and order situation, and also the Assam Rifles to provide more security to the Chief Minister Zia Zedliang. In fact, protests began a few days back when Naga groups protested against the urban local body polls, which were held on the 1st of Feb, due to the provision of 33% reservation for women. Despite the government declaring the polls null and void now, protesters have refused to back down on their demand and want the Chief Minister and his cabinet to step down. But there's of course more to just the story than this law and order problem. So helping us understand the issue better that's developing in Nagaland, we've got in studio Deepak Diwan, who's the editor of Northeast Sun, with us. We also have Amolak Rattan Kohli, who's the former governor of Mizoram, and we also have retired DG of BSF Prakash Singh, also who was posted in Assam as well, joining us. Professor Sanjoy Hazarika is the director of Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, joining us from the capital as well. Deepak, if I could start with you first, and you could just, for our viewers, just kind of give us an idea of what really was the problem regarding the reservation, why this was such a big issue, and why it has spiraled out of control.
See, when the Nagaland government announced that it was going for this local body elections, having 33% reservation for women, which was passed earlier, and government said we are going to implement that now. The people started agitation. They came out with one logic, is that Nagaland is a special status state under Article 371A, which gives them special status and powers, safeguards of traditional laws. And they say, according to our traditional laws, women are not allowed to be in the administrative posts. So that's why they are against this reservation.
Okay.
And with this agitation started, and it happened so that both the state government and the agitators, they came to loggerheads, and the Baptist church leaders, they intervened. On 30th of January, MOU was signed between the Nagaland government and the JCC, which is spearheading the agitation.
Movement,
And the MOU was signed on behalf of Nagaland government by the Home Minister, Mr. Patton. And on JCC's behalf, the convener, Subbu Jamir, signed it. And from NBCC, Dr. Zelu Keho, he signed the agreement on 30th, agreeing for a postponement of postponing the election for 2 months, so that all the Nagas civic society can have deliberations and discussions, and then whatever would be decided, it will be conveyed.
Yes.
The government had agreed.
Yes.
But next day the government said, they passed a cabinet in a meeting. The Chief Minister said, no, we are going ahead with the elections. That's how the protest started.
All right. All right. Prakash sir, give us an idea of also the fact that since 2004 these polls have not been held. The reservation issue has of course been burning there, and it has been on the back burner as well. But in 2015 you were pointing out, it was the Naga Mothers Association, the NMA, that actually filed that plea, and following which of course we saw those legal actions taking place. If you could give us a background of what exactly has been happening in Nagaland, at least when it comes to reservation of this particular 33% reservation in women's quota.
You see, if I trace the whole thing historically, in the 50s, when Fizo organized what he described as a plebiscite in Nagaland, at that time also the women were not allowed to vote. It was the contention was that the Maitis don't have enough political wisdom to exercise any voting rights. So the point I am trying to convey is that Nagaland, for that matter the whole of Northeast, or for that matter even the whole of India, you can say, it's a male-dominated society, more so in the Northeast. And that psychology continues, even though the Nagaland Assembly is passed a resolution in the I think 2001, they passed a resolution about giving reservation to women 33%. Now, this resolution remained pending. It was not implemented at the ground level. Then the Naga Mothers Association and others, they probably moved a PIL for the implementation of the legislative decision. And the court decreed that yes, the decision should be implemented. That's how the government decided to implement it. Now, the government, as far as constitutionally, legally, they did the right thing.
Yes.
Now, the argument that it goes against customary laws, I don't think the customary laws specifically forbid women from taking a part in political life. This is just a question of interpretation.
Yes.
It's a question of...
in fact, a lot of them, in fact, the Naga Ho-Ho, in fact, a lot of the Naga groups have been saying that there is no need for reservation because everyone's on equal ground, is what they at least claim to say. So that's, of course, one thing. But, Mr. Kohli, if I could bring you in now, like he's been pointing out, legally, everything seems fine for what the government did. Legally, if you think about it, even though under pressure now it has cancelled those polls, it's been declared null and void. However, how strong are tribal groups? Their importance in politics, their importance in daily life. You've, of course, been there in Mizoram. You have an idea of how things go, not just in Mizoram, but in other northeast states as well. How important are these groups?
Well, northeast, tribal societies are traditionally very, very strong. And they have enjoyed supremacy in their own areas. You can't question that easily. Of course, democracy has taken roots. Democracy was there at the village level also. They have village board, which are very, very effective. And the village Buddha, the chief, enjoyed excellent rapport with the society. You see, it's a transition from coming into a male-dominated society to an open society. Yes, I agree with you that socially these societies have been very, very open where women are concerned. They are allowed to participate everywhere, but conservatism is still there. They are coming to the public life is there. They don't want women to look powerful, where men can be subjugated, This is a fact of life. This is everywhere. Now, coming back to this problem, you see, under the constitution, they enjoy special privileges, which cannot be avoided, particularly the customary laws. They have to be respected. Now, here the state government, on its own wisdom, at that time in 2001, passed a law giving 33% reservation in local bodies again. And this was passed also, approved also, but they didn't have the courage to implement. Now, if people go to the court, it is a law of the land now. There you can't go take the customary law again back into this part because the state government has done. They are elected people of your state. If they have done something, you can't blame anybody for that. The legal process has to be honored.
Yes.
But at the same time, now it has become a social problem, which has become a law and order problem also. Now the state has to deal with it. I personally will tell you very frankly, the demand of asking for the resignation of the Chief Minister and Council of Ministers is unfair. Because they have implemented what the High Court has asked them to do. Now the point is this can be renegotiated.
Yes.
They can certainly repeal it also if they want, but that requires a lot of courage from every angle. Tomorrow the state government will also lose the credibility that they pass the law and then they repeal it,
The bigger question is why did the government, after signing that MOU, have to go ahead?
You see, the MOU is not a legal sanctity.
No, that's okay, but once you give your word and you go back on that, perhaps that's
MOU doesn't have any legal sanctity. Please, let's be very clear. It is not a legal process. Any agreement which is violative of their local laws, local law is now the law passed by the assembly. And that is prevalent. And they went to the High Court. Mother's organization, and they won the case.
Yes.
Now, in the interest of the society, I would still recommend it should be negotiated because the society should not be divided.
All right.
They are wonderful people, and you have to respect their sentiments in totality. And they can talk it over, but then talk it over has to be also done by the people's representative. Supposing they all resign, then there is a vacuum
this
again.
brings us to the question that is it just this issue then? What is making the crowd so angry? We'll come to that in a bit. But Sanjoy, I have to bring up the topic about, it has been said here by the two guests here that, the emergence of women is something that perhaps, the tribal groups are afraid of. For the past 16, 17 years, there have been no polls that have taken place. In fact, this time around, there were about over 450 candidates, and out of which a lot of them were women who had actually, they'd filed their nomination papers for these very polls. Northeast society is being seen, at least across India at least, it is portrayed as quite open for women, respect for women. A lot of times it's being seen as a hallmark compared to the rest of India. But at the end of it, the patriarchy society, it seeps through in every part of this country.
Both sides are claiming constitutional and legal rights to assert their position. The coalition of civil society groups, the Naga Ho and others, is saying that the constitution lays down very clearly that traditional rights will be protected. The Naga Mothers Association went to the Supreme Court, not just the High Court, to the Supreme Court to fight for what they believe was their democratic right, which is a chance to participate in elections. Now, in which part of the world do you have a situation escalating to a point where the men are saying the women will not contest elections? I mean, it's a democratic right of any person to contest an election. And I think it's extremely unfortunate. I think what should have happened is that there should have been much more openness in terms of negotiating this position, so that it did not escalate to a point where the police had to open fire, where mobs basically ransacked the municipal council building, 50 years old, burnt it down, various other buildings were burnt, Kohima under curfew, the police is out, the demands for the chief minister's resignation. It's really a failure of negotiating process. And the government of India has been negotiating with underground groups for more than 20 years. I think it could have intervened in terms of enabling a negotiating process, mediation to take place. Because I don't believe that, we should have a situation where women are barred from contesting. I don't think that is really acceptable in this day and age, because a customary right, unless, or a customary as a tradition, unless it is designed and developed by law, does not become a legal right. What Mr. Kohli was saying, and also partly what the respected Mr. Prakash Singh was also referring to. Because we have to recognize the fact that male patriarchy, and it's not just Nagaland, across this country is alive, well, and powerfully present in every space of life. So that has to be contested, that has to be resisted, and I certainly believe that women have the right not just to vote, but also to participate in elections, to contest elections. But since this has created such a turmoil, what it needs is for negotiating space to be created. And for that, I think the church must play a leading role, and leading civil society organizations and individuals who are committed to equality of everyone, not just of one group or the other. And I think that's very important to do. You need to diffuse the fire. You need to enable people to start conversations again, because it cannot be a men versus women thing. I mean, this is really something that is that should have been avoidable and should not have taken place.
Absolutely. And you were talking about the church, but ironically, the church is playing a role here.
Church
however,
did negotiate between the two sides and brought about a solution or agreement for 2 months, which was agreeable to the general public, but was not agreeable to the state government. Next they said, no, we are going ahead with the poll. That's how the entire situation, what is today, came about.
And this has been, of course, this issue has been boiling, Deepak, since January, isn't it? Since the beginning of January itself, there was already a declaration that we are going to boycott these polls, and so things have been boiling. And the Nagaland government, of course, thought that they can handle the situation. And once again, as far as the Northeast region is concerned, the MHA has been caught on the back foot, and they have to react only when there's arson and violence and there are buildings that are burned up, and finally people are sitting up and taking notice.
You're right, but even then, so what can center do? You have a state government in position, and law and order is a state subject.
All right.
Center can just give them more forces, whatever state government demands, but you cannot run the state government.
Well, you can do that in Kashmir. In Kashmir, you can do whatever.
You have to
Wait, one second. Sanjay wants to
react.
come to you, Mr. Kohli. Yes, Sanjay.
You see, the point here is that a negotiation is not a one-stop business. It is a continuous business. Just because one group created an agreement and it lasted 2 days is not good enough. These are groups which are committed to the larger good of society and of the people. They should have negotiated, the negotiations should have continued, the conversations should have continued. Why throw your hands up and say that, oh, this is like that and that is like that? The government can do anything. But ultimately, people have to talk to people, and that's the critical issue.
Yes, Sanjay, exactly the same was signed on 30th.
You can't just stop negotiating and say that...
No. 30th it was signed
and say that this is done.
The government, Nagaland government's behalf, the Home Minister of Nagaland, Mr. Patton, signed that document agreeing to postponement of 2 months in order to bring awareness in the society, do discussions among the people of the Nagaland and come to some conclusion.
I'm sorry, Deepak. The point about here is very frankly that this has been an issue which has been going on for 6 years, okay? It's been well reported, the case has been well reported from the Supreme Court, and the edict of the Supreme Court, which has been carried out essentially by the state government, is also well reported. So what you have in the opposition is largely from main groups. It is not, when you say civil society groups, and you have to ask who are the civil society groups. Is everybody on board, or is it just one section which is saying that this is not to be done?
And unfortunately, all the women groups who were supporting, of course, the reservation, a lot of them have fallen silent now. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of pressure. And talking about the pressure, Prakash, sir, if I could come to you, what perhaps could have been the pressure on the government? You know, of course, Sanjoy is saying that just signing a memorandum, Mr. Kohli as well saying signing a MOU doesn't mean anything. But still, once you give a word, the next day itself, what makes you turn back on it? I mean, what is the kind of pressure that perhaps the government was facing?
See, Sanjay mentioned about failure of the negotiating process. In fact, that is really the problem in Nagaland. You see, in 1997 there was a suspension of operations agreement. After that, more than 60 rounds of talks were held. Now, I mean, it's a joke. I haven't heard anywhere in the world 60 rounds of peace talks being held between two different groups, and still no settlement being arrived at. And then at the end of it, then in 2015 we have a framework agreement. And at the time the agreement was signed, we were told that another 3 or 4 months the final agreement would be there and the problem is going to be solved. And it's more than a year now, year and a half now, and we are nowhere near an agreement. And on the contrary, I mean, some recent incidents throw serious doubts about the validity and the sanctity of the agreement. The attack on Chief Minister Manipur at Ukhrul, which was reportedly carried out by NSC and IM groups. I mean, so these things are happening. The negotiating process is not really working in Nagaland. Now, why is it not working? Is it the intransigence of one group, or is it mental rigidity of another? I'm not apportioning any blame, but I think we have to understand that one group is not interested in a final resolution of the problems. That group has to be identified, and that group has to be dealt with. Enough of mollycoddling, enough of talks.
Yes.
So they must be told that, all right, I mean, we mean business, and at some point of time we have to agree on a certain code of conduct, a certain mode of behavior, a certain settlement. We have to agree on that. This thing cannot go on endlessly ad infinitum.
Absolutely, and you know, and this is in fact a problem which the rest of India doesn't understand, because they think everything is hunky-dory there across in the northeast. But there's deep-rooted problems which are, of course, it's been there for decades now. Mr. Kohli, you were also pointing out earlier about how when I was talking about how the MHA again, you know,
the government of India has practically no role to play in this particular problem. It is their customary rights.
Yes.
Those customary rights were taken away by the resolution by the assembly, by a due process of law, and women's body has gone to the court, and court has given an order for equality. Now that cannot be challenged so easily now by any state government. Any MOU is useless for that. It's a piece of paper. Now, when the problem is there, of course, it's a political problem at the state level. State government has to negotiate with various interested groups and come to an understanding. Now, when they have postponed the election, this is the breathing time.
Yes.
But that can be done only if there is a peace. I personally feel, because Mizoram is a shining example.
Yes.
That also has the customary laws, but they have been changing over a period of time in an evolving way. And they have done very well. And Nagaland, unfortunately, as Prakash Singh pointed out, that their negotiations are going on ad infinitum. There is no conclusion. I find, and it's slightly funny, they have ceasefire, but people move around very clearly.
And we all know that the Nagaland peace accord is just some accord which we still don't know what
this has to come to finality.
entails.
But fortunately, there is a good sign.
Yes.
Mr. Padmanabhan, who is the governor of Nagaland, has a very, very adequate knowledge of this area. And since he has come back today, I'm sure he'll play his role very properly and things should cool down. And our appeal as a people who know Northeast very well, that first maintain the peace,
yes,
then negotiate and come down to an agreed solution.
All right.
Violence is not there. I tell you, shedding of blood is the beginning of hatred. Mizoram has a shining history that where even we had some, had to carry out some operations against Burma people also, Myanmar people who had occupied some territory. We gave them an option to leave the area first, because we didn't want to shed their blood also. Shedding of blood is unfortunate.
I believe Sanjay wants to react. Sanjay?
Yeah. No, I don't want to react. I'm largely in agreement with what has been said.
Okay.
I just want to add one thing. You know, you cannot have two levels of equality. You cannot create inequality by saying that this is going against this system, therefore these people are not equal citizens. Everybody is equal.
Yeah.
You have to negotiate. That is the space we have to negotiate. We have to come on the basis. I don't want to get into the talks and all the things about
but
negotiation.
Very quickly also, Sanjay, because I'm running out of time, but I also want to ask, a lot of, we have been trying to speak.
The point is very clear.
We have been trying to speak to some journalists there as well, some social thinkers then. They claim that this poll...
Can I just...
All right, please continue. Quickly, yes.
I just want to say that the point I made earlier, you can't have two levels of equality, no? Either people are equal or they're not. And are you for gender equality or are you not for gender equality? If you are for gender equality and democracy and democratic space and embracing democratic space and respecting the rights of everyone, then how is this suddenly become such a critical problem? That is why we need to negotiate the space.
And that is why
you need to negotiate the space, but on the basis of equality, not of discrimination.
And that is why, Deepak, is this the only problem? Is this why Nagaland is burning today? Is it just because of these polls, because of the reservation, or is there some other issue?
No, at this moment it's the reservation issue. And if the government
because we have been getting reactions, and some people have been saying, we spoke to some journalists earlier this morning, and they said that this is just the tip of the iceberg. People are angry about. Generally, there's civic discontent against the government.
Well, see, the thing is, once there's a spark and fire, then everything you take out, whether you're happy with the government or not, whether you're happy with this tribe or that tribe, that is there. But the fact still remains, ever since the Nagaland state came into existence in 1963, not a single woman has been elected, not been accepted. I mean, not been elected. They have contested, but not been elected. No woman legislature.
No woman MLA in the Nagaland.
Only once woman MP, Rano Shaiza.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Well, Sanjay actually put it perfectly. You cannot have two standards when you talk about civil society and equality. Thanks so much, Sanjay. Thank you so much, Deepak, Mr. Kohli, and also Prakash Singh, sir. Thank you so much for joining me here, trying to make us at least understand, our viewers, of what really is going on in Nagaland. A lot of times we just see the visuals. We know about what perhaps is going on, but perhaps today our viewers have learned a little bit more about Nagaland, the problem that exists there. Thank you so much for joining me here in the big picture. That's it, at least for today. We'll be back again on Monday, in fact, for another topic. Thanks so much for joining us for the moment here on Rajya Sabha TV.